To undertake major work on the railway, we need to take possession of the line, working to the instructions detailed in section T3 of the rulebook. This video shows you how to apply those rules safely and effectively. T3 possessions can be planned up to 5 years in advance and are coordinated with a number of other possessions and the train service. So your possession must run smoothly if it's not to conflict with other activity. Railway investment is at record levels and possessions are becoming an increasingly scarce resource. To minimise disruption to the railway and ensure everyone's safety, we've got to get it right. Every time.
West Coast is a major challenge for us. Key to that is the access to the railway for our construction activities. What we want to do through this video is to help people understand how to take T3 possessions in a safe and an efficient way. We can't show everything on this video, that's why we have the rule book, but we hope that this video will help people get more comfortable with how we're going about the task of taking possessions efficiently.
A possession occurs when all normal train movements are stopped, allowing engineering train movements to be made. Details are published in the weekly operating notice. Normal signalling operation on a line blocked by a possession is suspended. The PICOP is in charge of the possession, but engineering supervisors, suitably identified, must also be appointed to be in charge of each separate worksite within the possession. Only one ES must be appointed at each worksite and must stay there until the work is completed, suspended, or they're relieved by another person. In certain circumstances, the engineering supervisor can also act as the PICOP, but this must be pre-arranged.
We've had a chat and we've looked at it, and we can actually combine one worksite here, we can have a marker boards at 14 mile 60 chain.
A few days before the possession, a site meeting will be attended by the PICOP, engineering supervisors, COSs and overhead line engineers. It's vital that everyone attends to ascertain the limits of the possession, the layout within the possession, the limit of the work sites and the position of the marker boards, train movements, specific work plans, site access arrangements, any electrical isolations, arrangements for any signalling disconnections, and the communications details. Arrangements must be made for the possession to be protected in two ways: by signals controlled by a signal box or a signal post replacement switch, and by the use of possession limit boards and detonators at each end of the possession and on any joining line. If level crossings are affected, special arrangements will be necessary. A point operator may also be required in certain circumstances. The PICOP must agree with each signaller controlling a signal leading into the possession the time at which arrangements for taking the possession can start and which signals will be maintained at danger to protect the possession.
The blocking points are on the up main ahead of Stoke Sierra Echo 122 signal. Yeah. To 390 points. Yep.
The signaller will not give permission to place the protection until the line to be blocked is clear of all trains.
And on the up main, I'll be taking possession around the temper.
However, providing the arrangements have been published, the signaller may grant the possession with one engineer's train or on-track machine on each line in the possession, but only when they're standing at the designated signal. The signaller will advise the PICOP when the protecting signals have been placed at danger and points set to protect the possession. Reminder appliances are used and signallers in adjacent boxes notified where required.
Cheers.
The PICOP must now arrange for possession limit boards and detonators to be provided at each end of the possession and on any line joining it. This is often done by a hand signaller. 3 detonators must be placed on the line 20 metres apart on the same rail, and a possession limit board next to the middle of the 3 detonators. This protection is placed 400 metres ahead of the signal on the approach to the possession, and 400 metres on the approach to the signal ahead of the possession. protection arrangements can become more complicated at points or crossings, or where the minimum distance can't be obtained on the approach to the possession. The rulebook has specific instructions for these eventualities. In addition, where there are level crossings in the possession, arrangements must be made with the signaller for each one. Once the PICOP has completed these preparations, the following details must be entered on the Record of Possession Arrangements form. The location of the protection on the approach to and ahead of the possession. The position of any hand signallers. The location of any points which have been secured for the possession. Any signals which are being maintained at danger by signal post replacement switches. Arrangements at each level crossing, including when an attendant is appointed or withdrawn, and any other information affecting the possession arrangements. When the signaller has been assured by the PICOP that the protection is in place, the details are entered in the train register, which the PICOP either countersigns or, if not physically there, confirms and then repeats back his or her name, employer, location and the time. The signaller will then grant the possession. To confirm, the signaller cannot grant the possession until possession limit board, detonator and signal protection have been provided, level crossing arrangements are in place, and the necessary entries have been made in the train register. Clearly, the PICOP must not allow any work to start until the signaller has granted the possession.
Correct, the 14 3/4 mile post and the 15.5 mile post.
The PICOP must instruct the engineering supervisor to erect marker boards at the agreed locations, but only when any movement the PICOP has already authorised has passed clear or stopped short of the worksite.
I've erected my marker boards at 14 3/4.
The PICOP must not authorise any train or machine required within the worksite to approach until after the marker boards have been erected. Marker boards are placed at least 100 metres from each end of the worksite, unless the detonators protecting the possession fall within the 100 metres, in which case the marker board is placed next to the first detonator. Incidentally, no marker boards are necessary if there are no trains or on-track machines in the possession, or there's only one worksite and the only movements will be those of on-track machines. The PICOP enters the time at which work starts at each worksite on the Record of Possession Arrangements form. Each COS at the worksite must sign the engineering supervisor's certificate, or if the ES is acting as COS, this must be recorded.
So if you can actually give it him back for 1300.
It's vital that each COS receives a full face-to-face briefing from the engineering supervisor.
Yeah, got that, lovely.
Where necessary, arrangements will have to be made for the OLE to be isolated and earthed, after which the overhead line permit to work will be issued.
Right, Andy, that's the earthing out of the overhead line done now.
On DC electrified lines, separate arrangements will be required to isolate the conductor rails.
Hello Paul, got a Tampa 7 Zulu 09 standing at Sierra Echo 84 signal ready to go into possession on the down main.
The signaller must ask the PICOP for permission before authorising any movement towards the protection. The PICOP must ensure that the protection is not lifted until the engineer's train has stopped at the first detonator.
Instruct the driver to proceed with caution to the first marker board.
Only the PICOP can authorise a movement into the possession, and the signaller must be informed and the protection replaced as soon as it's passed clear. So, the signaller is responsible for train movements outside the possession, the PICOP for movements into and within the possession but outside the work sites, and the engineering supervisor for movements into and within a work site. The train proceeds to the first marker board but doesn't enter the work site until specifically instructed by the engineering supervisor, who also controls it when it's in the work site. Only the PICOP can authorise movements past a marker board at the exit from a work site.
We've got the Tampa 7 Zulu 09
Right.
standing at There's protection.
Only
Once
the
it's released,
signaller can authorise a movement out of the possession once the pike-op has told him the train is ready to leave. After the movement, the protection must be replaced and any points reset to protect the possession. The pike-op can only permit one movement at a time to take place within a section of line under their control. And only engineers' trains involved with work in the possession are allowed to enter, apart from a locomotive going to assist a failed train or machine. The pike-op must pay attention to their paperwork and make a record of the time that an engineer's train is authorised to enter a section, and when they're told a movement has either arrived complete at the marker boards or PLB or shunted clear at an intermediate point.
Proceed out of the possession through 351 points and obey all signals.
Whether it's the pike-op, ES or signaller authorising a movement, they must obviously reach a clear understanding with the driver and ensure the movement is made at caution. Propelling movements are hazardous to the staff working within the possession and must be kept to a minimum and carefully controlled. They're only normally permitted within the worksite, but the rulebook has special provisions for propelling movements outside the worksite in exceptional circumstances. Green zone working is the preferred method of protection for all work on or about the railway and must be used if at all possible. It's vital to understand that working within a possession does not automatically create a green zone. They can only be established by the COS, arranging for all train movements to be stopped. There is only one exception. Movements of road railers and on-track machines are permitted through a worksite green zone, as long as they're made with extreme caution and do not exceed walking pace. Otherwise, red zone working applies and lookout protection is required. It should also be remembered that the possession may only have been taken on one line, and even if a green zone has been created, the COS must ensure that staff are not exposed to risk from any adjacent open line.
Chancery of Jarvis working on bridge work and tamping between the 14 and 3/4 mile post and the 15.5 mile post. He's sighted at 1818. His job's going okay at the moment.
Lengthy possessions will inevitably see changes of staff, so if a pike-op goes off duty during the possession, they must pass on important information to the new pike-op. Details of any movement that has been authorised but not yet completed. The location of all engineers' trains, on-track machines or other vehicles within the possession. The protection arrangements. The location of each worksite. The name and contact details of each engineering supervisor. The location of any unworked points that have been secured, and the arrangements at each level crossing. They then give the record of possession arrangements form and a log of train movements to the new pike-op and tell the signaller at the signal box from which the possession was granted the new pike-op's name. The signaller writes this information in the train register.
Andy Jones is working down at bridge number 45.
If an engineering supervisor goes off duty, they must tell the new ES the arrangements within the worksite, give them the certificate and tell the pike-op the new ES's name. The pike-op must write these details on the record of possession arrangements form. Similarly, if a COS is relieved, the COS taking over must sign the engineering supervisor's certificate. The goal of all this activity, of course, is to take a possession, do the job, then return the line safely to normal working. The start of that handback is when work has been completed at a worksite.
Everyone clear in line?
The engineering supervisor must ask the COS in charge of each group to sign the ES's certificate, confirming that either the work is completed and everyone is clear of the line, or that the COS is satisfied that work can continue safely without the protection arrangements being in place. Where handback of technical aspects of the work is required, this must be done by the appropriate engineer.
That's everyone finished on a line, all clear of the line.
The engineering supervisor then passes this information on to the pike-op and asks for permission to remove the marker boards, and when that's done, confirms that the line is clear.
That's the marker boards lifted on the work site.
The
14
ES must hand the PICOP the signed engineering supervisor's certificate, or give an absolute verbal assurance to the PICOP that the right action has been taken, sign the certificate to confirm that the PICOP has been given that assurance, and then send the certificate to the PICOP by a previously agreed method. When the PICOP has received an assurance from the engineering supervisor at each worksite that work is complete, they must then tell each signaller that the possession is ready to be given up, make arrangements for the protection to be withdrawn, instruct those removing the protection either to advise when it's been withdrawn or tell each relevant signaller who must pass the information onto the PICOP, and arrange for all unworked points to be released.
The ESs have assured me the line is safe and clear for trains to run.
When the PICOP has told each signaller that it's safe for trains to run, the details are entered in the train register, which the PICOP confirms. The PICOP has now given up the possession.
The up and down main now is clear.
Other signallers must be notified by the signaller granting the possession, and arrangements made for all signals maintained at danger to be restored to normal working. The possession planners will want to know how it went and what can be learned to help things run smoothly in the future. The PICOP and their colleagues will know that their skills have been crucial to the successful completion of the work. For the PICOP, the essential requirements are planning meetings, local knowledge, effective liaison with, amongst others, the signaller, engineering supervisor and hand signaller, effective control of train movements, completion of the record of possession arrangements form and a log of train movements, and an intimate knowledge of section T3 of the rulebook, including issues relating to protection, marker boards, points, level crossings, engineers' trains and propelled movements.
There are train movements.
Working in possessions requires immense attention to detail, not just on the day of the race, but also in the pre-planning. We have good procedures. What we all must do is work these in a professional and a consistent way. Essential in all of this is good communication, from the management team through to the frontline troops. If we do this, we will ensure both the safety and the performance of the West Coast Main Line.